Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. I think we're just waiting a couple seconds for a few more faces to join here, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Kenapa harus dipotong?
Saya suka aja.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started now as people continue to join. So welcome everyone. It's good to see you all again, and welcome to those of you who might be new to HuMEL, which is Ideals Learning Network for Humanitarian Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning Practitioners. My name is Laura Zilmer, and I'm happy to be welcoming you to this session as part of Ideals Monitoring and Evaluation team. I think we're all well acquainted with the ins and outs of Zoom at this point, but just as a reminder, please remember to mute your microphone when you are not speaking. And if your internet connection allows, please feel free to turn on your camera. If you have questions at any point during the meeting, please feel free to send a message in the chat box to anyone with Ideal in their name. So that's Lloyd, Chris, and myself. So each HuMEL meeting has a different topic of focus, and today's meeting will focus on M&E for accountability to affected populations. Accountability to affected populations is an active commitment to use power responsibly by taking account of, giving account to, and being held to account by the people humanitarian organizations seek to assist. Today, we'll hear from colleagues from Mercy Corps, Save the Children, and Catholic Relief Services, who will describe some of the M&E processes and tools they're using to help ensure accountability to the populations they work with. But before we hear from our implementing partners, I'd like to invite Joanna Mahoney and Pamela Slater from BHA to say a few words. Joanna and Pamela are M&E and AAP advisors respectively, and they help lead BHA's work around accountability to affected populations. Thanks, both of you, for joining us.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks for that introduction. My name is Joanna Mahoney, as Laura mentioned, and I'm the M&E advisor for BHA. I'm joined here today with a few of my colleagues from the M&E team and also Pamela Slater. So I'd be really happy to give a brief introduction and insight on the background and intention of the topic today. So I'm sure most of you are aware, but last year, the Bureau of Humanitarian Assistance was established to streamline humanitarian responses and really bring together the expertise and resources of the former USAID offices, OFTA and Food for Peace. With this merger and creation of BHA, AAP was elevated and given an institutional home, so it's a really good opportunity. And now AAP for us sits within the Safe and Accountable Programming team and has shared equities with the M&E team within BHA. Even so, a key priority and work stream for us, for the M&E team, is AAP, and I'm the work stream lead. I would like to, at this time, introduce Pamela Slater.
Thank you, Joanna, and hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. So again, to introduce myself, I am Pam Slater. I am an advisor on BHA's Safe and Accountable Programming team. And as Joanna mentioned, with the creation of BHA, BHA elevated, its bureau's efforts related to AAP in order to ensure that affected populations are at the center of all humanitarian action. In addition, the SAP team, which we call it for short, also focuses on protection from sexual exploitation and abuse. We're one of two teams that supports BHA's handling of SEA allegations that are reported by partners. We're also focused on protection mainstreaming or safe programming in order to ensure that programs are implemented in a safe manner and that protection is central to all programming. And this includes through the integration of GBV risk mitigation. So I just wanted to introduce the SAP team to everyone on the call and thank you for being here. And I will hand it back over to Joanna.
Thanks, Pamela. Yeah, so BHA has a goal to support our partners' capacity to involve affected people in decisions about the assistance they receive. So while we were asking ourselves, how can we best support our implementing partners in doing so, we really thought that it would be important to kind of ask the question, and have those conversations with our partners first. And that is why we suggested this meeting and the survey. So we wanted to, give you a big thank you for your submissions and taking the time to share your knowledge and experiences with us. We always welcome these opportunities to engage with our implementing partners. And also, we wanted to give a big thank you to Laura and the IDEAL team for coordinating all of this.
Thanks so much, Joanna and Pam. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks as well for giving a little bit of that background. So without further ado here, we'll turn it over to our implementing partner presenters to hear about some of the ways they have been applying accountability to affected populations, processes, and tools in their work. So first, I'd like to welcome Scott Schroda and Josephat Mangunda from Mercy Corps. Scott is a CARM Quality Assurance Specialist, with CARM standing for Community Accountability and Reporting Mechanisms.
Quality Assurance Specialist, Mercy.
And Josephat is based in Zimbabwe and is a CARM and HuMEL advisor. As Scott and Josephat are presenting, please feel free to write your questions in the chat box. Scott and Josephat will have an opportunity at the end of their presentation to answer questions. And then again, we'll return to questions and plenary discussion at the end of today's meeting. So Scott and Josephat, the floor is yours.
Awesome, thanks so much. Let me share my screen really quickly. All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, you can see.
Great, thanks. All right, again, my name is Scott Schroda. I am the CARM Quality Assurance Specialist with Mercy Corps in the HQ office. And I have the pleasure of being accompanied by our brilliant Josephat Mangunda, who is the Community Accountability Focal Point in Zimbabwe. Today, we're here to talk to you about accountability dashboarding. So without further ado, let me get started. I'm going to provide a little bit of background, and then Josephat's going to go into much more detail as to how his team has used dashboarding to better their community accountability systems. So first off, let me talk about what we mean by CARM at Mercy Corps. So CARM stands for Community Accountability Reporting Mechanism. Essentially what this is a feedback and complaints mechanism that provides an opportunity for all community members, including program participants, to give feedback and complaints to Mercy Corps about our work. Just a little bit more about CARM and how it is intended to work. So each piece of feedback that that Mercy Corps receives, we go through what we call the CARM workflow. So there are 4 steps in the CARM workflow. First being the collection of feedback. Second being logging and grading the feedback and documenting this in a database that's dedicated to feedback. Third, taking appropriate action based on the feedback received. And then lastly, closing the feedback loop. And what we mean by closing the feedback loop is informing the informant who provided the feedback with the resolution of the feedback, the action that was taken. And so in order to, this is going into the HuMEL part of community accountability, in order to ensure that the CARM feedback or the CARM workflow that I just presented is functioning properly, Mercy Corps requires all teams to measure results on certain indicators related to CARM. Part of the reason for this is that we believe regular monitoring of CARM contributes to both higher quality of the CARM system and also a more equitable system. So we have indicators that are dedicated to measuring that CARM is accessible to people of all sexes, people of different age groups, different ethnicities, etc. You see in front of you a list of indicators that we recommend that all teams measure. And these indicators are measured based on data from different sources. One of the main sources being the CARM database. So for example, number of pieces of feedback received, that is an indicator that can be pulled from the CARM database. And then we also collect other indicators based on post-distribution monitoring surveys, user satisfaction surveys, etc. So I'm going to take a moment to just present 3 of the tools that we've developed at Mercy Corps for monitoring CARM. So first tool that I'm going to present is a CARM dashboard template. So this template is a template for teams to use for their monthly reports. Essentially what this is a library of indicators, and it's made with dummy data, so blank data, and teams can connect their individual CARM databases to this Power BI template through a series of steps, and then connect their data fields directly to each of these visualizations. Teams are encouraged to contextualize each of these monthly reports, choose which indicators they would like to keep and which they would like to delete based on their context. And yeah, let me talk a little bit more about the series of steps by which teams can use to connect their CARM database to this dashboard. So we've developed an accompanying guide we call Developing a CARM Dashboard, a step-by-step guide in Power BI. And this guide gives background on Power BI and then walks team members through a step-by-step process of downloading Power BI, downloading the template, connecting databases to Power BI, and then the process by which teams use to develop their own visualizations, and then lastly, connecting their CARM database to the pre-prepared visualizations that I just presented in the dashboard. Last tool that I'm going to present is what we call how to interpret monthly CARM results. So this is a framework tool for dialogue between CARM focal points such as Josephat and country leadership teams to discuss the performance of CARM, discuss areas of success and areas where improvement might be needed. And this tool is divided by individual indicators. So we took screenshots of the indicators provided in the database template and then provided a series of accompanying questions for each of the indicators. Based on the questions, what does the data in the visualization present? What could explain the result in the visualization? And what could the team do next to address what is presented here? So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to Josephat, who is going to talk into more detail on how the Zimbabwe team has used these tools.
Okay, thank you so much, Scott. Like Scott has already said, my name is Josephat Mangunda. I'm the CARM focal point for the for Mexico, Zimbabwe. And this dashboard, as Scott has already alluded to, is based on the CARM indicators that he has presented on. And what we have done as a country program is the whole purpose for us to even have a dashboard is to make sure that all the country teams, all the country team members understand or have an idea of what's going on and what needs to be done. So we engage senior management and program team members on what they would want to see in their dashboard. And also as the CARM team, we also put in what we thought, what we felt we needed to be checking also about the system. So some of the things that we've done is we've removed sensitive feedback like fraud and safeguarding cases, because these may jeopardize ongoing processes and investigations. And also, as maybe Scott has already alluded to this one, the dashboard is split into monthly indicators and cumulative indicators. Monthly indicators were basically just trying to see how is our system performing, how did it perform in the previous month. And then when we move on to the cumulative indicators, we're trying to see, so over the period of time, over a certain period of time, what are the trends? What are the issues that are coming up over time? So in our engagement with the program teams, one of the things that the program teams requested was a highlight section, somewhere where we could write some of the trends, some of the recommendations, some of the things that we're seeing in the CAMP dashboard, just to give them immediate takeaways from the dashboard. So now I'm going to go a bit deeper into the monthly indicators. But before we do that, this is just a framework that we use to analyze the visualizations. For example, Scott has already alluded to what does this data represent. So as a team, we then discuss, so what is the visualization, the data that is being presented saying to us? Then the next step is to say, okay, so what possibly caused this increase, this decrease, or what possibly caused this, what we're seeing on the visualization? And reflection without action doesn't profit much. Then the third step is to say, okay, so how can we improve on what we're seeing in the visualization? Next, we're just going to look at two monthly indicators. Okay, so the first monthly indicator is the number of cases received in the previous month. Now, what does it show us? It basically tells us, so the pieces of feedback that we're receiving, are they increasing? Are they decreasing? What is the change? What is the change in the number of pieces that we're receiving? And what could possibly explain this? So from our experience in the Zimbabwe country program, we started implementing CALM in June 2020. And between June 2020 and November 2020, we had only received 100 pieces of feedback. So for us, we thought that it was a bit low, considering that we had about 8 programs running. So we started looking and saying, so what could possibly cause this? And then one of the things that we did community engagement focus group discussions to find out are even the community members are aware of our feedback mechanisms. Our staff members confident to really speak on CALM, to speak on accountability affected populations. Do they even have the capacity to present CALM to the communities? So one of the things that we did, what we discovered is communities were not aware of the mechanism that we had. So we developed posters which our field officers could use to raise awareness and also stick in public places as constant reminders. We also trained our team members so that they could confidently and in a more relaxed manner effortlessly present CALM to the communities. So this actually increased our feedback, our number of pieces of feedback that we receive monthly to an average about 100 every month. And where in some months we actually have more cases, even though our number of projects has decreased slightly. So the second indicator that I'll focus on is channels used by sex of informant. So this visualization is basically telling us who is accessing and using our system. Because one of the things that we are curious to see is everyone accessing the system? Is everyone using the system? So what could possibly cause what we're seeing? Because as you look at this visualization, you can see that there's a significant amount of feedback coming from women as opposed to men. So one of the things that we found out as a possible cause in the focus group discussions was that in Zimbabwe, men are told that men don't cry, men don't complain, you have to stand up and make things happen for yourself. So they really don't come forth to complain. And also, as you can also see, the proportions of men and women using the feedback channels is different. For the hotline, you have more women giving feedback than men. And we also tried to figure out, to ask why. One of the things that we found out was women generally felt that they should not speak, because in Zimbabwe, it's a patriarchal society. Women don't normally speak in public places. So as they normally find a hotline where they can give their feedback privately and at their own convenience, more convenient. So this is what we did to try and make sure that our mechanisms are accessible to both genders. Okay, now I'm going to move on to the cumulative indicators. Now, the cumulative indicators, basically we're looking at the trends and how is it changing over time. And the visualization that I chose for this presentation is the average number of days a case is open over time. So Scott has given us the CALM workflow, basically from a mechanism receiving feedback, recording it, making a decision on how to act upon it, and then closing or giving the response to the actual informant. So what we, as you can see, in January we had a peak, and then it's decreased and then increased again in April. So one of the things that we did, that we do is try and analyze. So what happened in January? So in January, we had a higher grade case, which required more investigation, more time to resolve. In April, we had a lockdown, a COVID lockdown, which meant that it was increasingly difficult for us to really get in touch with the informants in the actual implementation areas. So having said that, you notice that to actually have this general decreased trend, although we had these two significant events, we also did something else. We also tried to say, okay, so regardless of the events, what can we do as a team? So the first thing that we did was to make all the team members aware of the system. How does the system operate? For example, when you receive sensitive feedback, who do you tell it to, and how does the process work? That way, they really knew the agency of reporting. The second thing is we prepared frequently asked questions, so that someone like me who's based at HQ in the Zimbabwe country office is able to then respond faster to issues that are raised. So the frequently asked questions help me to, when I receive a call on the toll-free line, I can easily respond. And then where someone's question is not on the frequent asked questions, we could always take the program CALM focal point person to respond to it. So I guess in a nutshell, this is what we have done as a Zimbabwe country program to incorporate the indicators and to make CALM work in our country. So thank you so much, and we are willing to receive and ready to receive questions going forward. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Scott and Josephat, for sharing about Mercy Corps' CALM process and these useful Power BI tools. So I've seen a couple questions already popping up here in the chat box. And to our participants, as you think of questions, feel free also to add them to the chat box here. We'll try to address some of these now, and then we'll have an opportunity again for questions at the end of the meeting. So let's see. The first question we had here is from Allison, and I think is relatively straightforward. So Allison is asking, is the dashboard per project or per country/operating area?
I can respond quickly to that, and then maybe Josephat, you'd like to add on. But we recommend that each country team make a dashboard that is at the country level. We don't want to double up the work, and certain Power BI has features that you can easily disaggregate by program. So it wouldn't be too hard if a team would make a country level dashboard to just disaggregate by program on each page, and then a program dashboard is automatically created. Josephat, I think, so your team has made a country level dashboard. Do you want to say anything more about that?
Okay, thank you, Scott. So one of the things, okay, so for us, I think being just slightly over a year implementing CALM, we felt that a country level database would help to also encourage team members from other project teams who are receiving less feedback to also look into their system. It helps us to analyze at country level, how are we doing overall? And for humanitarian projects, they have requested that we do a program-specific dashboard, but this is not really shared with everyone. But what's shared with everyone is the country-level database, so dashboard. So like Scott has already alluded to, Power BI makes it easier to then go into that level of detail when you go to program level. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks so much, both of you. The next question we have here is from Loam, who's asking, how do you handle the aspects of confidentiality via WhatsApp as one of the feedback channels?
I think that's a great question for Josephat.
Okay, great. Josephat, do you feel comfortable answering that?
Okay, yes. So level of on confidentiality is on WhatsApp. So our WhatsApp platform is housed at the country headquarters, which is handled by myself. So we have tried to really make it at a higher level so that we ensure that. So what happens is that in our country, the toll-free line has a backline number. So we have made that the WhatsApp number such that all the information, all the feedback that's been received on the toll-free line is also on an organizational phone, which even the organization can say they can just retrieve any information from it, as opposed to it being on a personal phone where the organization might struggle to get rights to get into the phone. So we try to house the toll-free line and the WhatsApp on an organizational phone so that the organization has access to the pieces of feedback. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. I think we have time for maybe one more question before we move on here to the next presentation. So I see Eunice is asking. Eunice, thank you for your question. We have, do you receive out of scope feedback, and how does the referral system work? So two parts to that question, if you have time for either or both. Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, the thing about feedback mechanisms is that they don't reject at the point of intake. So we do receive a lot of feedback which is not exactly related to our activities. And how we have handled that is at program level, we have focal point persons. So these persons actually work within their project to create referral pathways. So we have we know that we are working with these departments. Maybe it's health. So we know that in the Ministry of Health, because our health, it's a health project, we're going to have health related feedback, which might be beyond our scope. So we actually have focal points within the departments that are working and the NGOs that are working with, who we just refer that feedback to, and then they take it up. Yeah, thank you.
Terrific. And you're right on time as well, because I think we'll need to move on to the next presentation now. But I see some other questions coming into the chat, and we're noting these questions, and hopefully we'll have time to circle back towards these at the end. So thanks so much again, Scott and Josephat. Please do keep the questions coming, and yeah, we'll return to these toward the end. So next, I'd like to welcome Kalkadan Burhanu from Save the Children. Kalkadan helps run Save the Children's Ethiopia Country Office's accountability database, and will be sharing her experience operating the database as part of a BHA-funded cash program for the COVID-19 response. So thanks so much for joining us today, Kalkadan.
Hi everyone, my name is Kalkadan Burhanu. I am the male assistant at the Ethiopian Country Office. Today I want to share with you guys how our accountability is to children and communities is at Ethiopian Country Office. So before I start going through my presentation, my role in this system we're going to look through is the first one is part of our agendas is we have a toll-free hotline. We'll discuss about that, and I'll talk about the meal automation system we have. And I've been involved in and designing of the automation system, on data entry of the indicators, and as well as I manage the system. In addition, I receive and record feedbacks on the through the toll-free hotline. That means we'll be able to discuss about that, and I'll go through the system as well. Chris, can you help me through the slides? Okay. Okay, these are the agendas. The first one is accountability to children and communities, our toll-free hotline, and from meal automation system, we'll focus on feedback and response database. Accounting to children and communities means as Save the Children, is committed to being accountable to children and communities. By sharing appropriate and timely information, by supporting them to influence decision making, by helping them to participate in the projects, by preparing different feedback mechanisms so that they can present their feedback, provide if they have a complaints, provide their complaints, and it will be recorded into our system, tracked, and they will help for decision making. Can we go to this next slide? Next slide. Okay, so Save the Children standard on accountability is all country office has to demonstrate continuous accountability to children and communities. That means we need to have a strong accountability system that support a high quality and appropriate program intervention. These are held by information sharing, by having a strong information sharing channels. This information sharing channels has to be a two-way communication. That means we provide regular and timely information to the beneficiaries, and we engage them in two-way dialogue by listening children and communities, our partners, their ideas, their opinions and concerns. On participation means providing children and adults with opportunities to express their views and influence on our decision-making process. The third one is our feedback response mechanism. Next slide, please. The next slide, the feedback response mechanism we have is one way we can hear about the ideas, the concerns, and the opinions beneficiaries have about our project, our staff, our employees, or our implementing partners. We have multiple entry channels and a systematic way of tracking these feedbacks we gathered. Since Ethiopia is a diversified country, that means we need to have multiple entry channels depending on that community. The main things we concerned about is it has to be context-specific proactive channels. There have to be reactive channels as well to capture this feedback, feedbacks that field office staffs here on their day-to-day activities. And first, before we implement this feedback response mechanism channels, children and communities must be consulted to know which channels are appropriate for them. If it's around schools, we suggest for them to have a suggestion box so that most beneficiaries, we assume that they are educated and they can write. Depending on the community's decision, this feedback channels are implemented. And we have a standard operation procedure to handling these feedbacks as well. The main one thing is we have to make sure that the feedbacks are closed. This loop are closed. After the loop are closed, the beneficiaries have to be contacted, and we have to let them know the actions has been taken, and if they have additional feedbacks as well, we will take the feedbacks and record to our meal automation system to track and to follow up as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are some examples of the channels we have, the feedback and response mechanism channels we have at Ethiopian Country Office. The first one is suggestion box, one-to-one discussion, appeal committees, community reference group, FGD, review meetings on a project that are implemented at schools. We have child-led groups and The last one is as an additional to these channels, we have a toll-free hotline. It's a phone number, that's 6163. Now we'll discuss about it. Okay, so this is what the feedback cycle looks like. As you can see here, first the information is collected via our different various channels, and it might be our hotline, it might be our regular phones. We give regular phones to beneficiaries as well. It might be suggestion box. After staffs receive these feedbacks, we have a one-pager. They will fill the feedbacks on one-pager, and finally, they will record it to the HuMEL automation system. When they record it to the HuMEL automation system, that means the system will allow us to enter the person responsible for following up this feedback, and that means that the feedback responsible person will receive an email notification and it will follow up this feedback. Finally, the feedback will be tracked and reported. The follow-up actions will be given as well. So this is what our feedback cycle looks like. The second we'll see is our toll-free hotline system. Next slide, please. Okay, so our toll-free hotline system gives strengths that we need to receive this feedbacks direct from beneficiaries. So this was initiated to further strengthen the beneficiary feedback response mechanism to be able to reach the beneficiaries directly in a safe, accessible, and effective manner. And for a calling party, this line is free. That means they can easily access it as well. This hotline device is installed in the central HuMEL department. I manage the hotline. That means I receive the feedbacks, record them into the feedback form, and finally enter the data. Next slide, please. Okay, we have a standard operating procedure as well to guide us through the implementation of this toll-free hotline operation. So this is what our hotline feedback looks like. First, we need to create awareness. We create awareness to beneficiaries, and not only beneficiaries, to implementing partners, to government. We create awareness. We have a one-pager. As we have a one-pager, we converted this. The first pager we prepared was in an English version, but we converted to Amharic, Tigrinya, Orominya, and it depends on that community. We converted to that community language so that they can understand. So in awareness, we receive and record feedbacks through this
Kalkadan, I think you might be having some tech issues. It looks like you turned off your video, so maybe that will help. Maybe we can give you another minute or so to see if you're able to reconnect. And if not, hopefully we can maybe come back to this presentation toward the end. But let's see, just give it maybe another minute or so. Okay. Yes, as Chris mentioned, in the meantime, if you have any questions for Kalkadan, please feel free to write them in the chat. I think it might be best in the interest of time if we move on to our third presenter today.
Actually, Kokodan is back.
Oh, you're back. Wonderful. I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I think the connection failed me. We have
no problem, no problem.
Connection here. So I'll try to speed it up so we don't take time. So basically, this is what the feedback handling process looks like after the responsible person receives the feedbacks. He or she will follow up the feedback, give responses, and provide communicate the beneficiary as well. At this stage, we say that the case is closed and we capture our learnings. So basically, the next we will see is our meal automation system. We already we talked about how we record feedbacks by using the form. After using the form, we record it to the meal automation. Next slide, please. So this is what our meal automation system looks like. Ethiopian Country Office has been exerting effort to maximize our data quality, capturing, and basically to improve our meal system. So this was initiated by the meal unit and developed by the IT team as well. So this has different components, as you can see: project profile, accountability, quality benchmarks, indicator of success, evaluation, and evidential learning. And finally, we developed, and last month we rolled out indicator performance tracking table. So to optimize all meal components we have at the country office, we're doing this digitalizing the system. So the aim is to enhance our data collection data collection system, our utilization of data for capturing learnings, and to apply them on different program development and so on. Now we'll see the meal automation system. So what we need to do is first after not everyone can access the system. That means they require a permission. I provide them the permission to access the system. So that means first we need to do is click accountability. So after we click accountability, so the accountability contains 3 pillars: both information sharing, participation, feedback response, and feedback response action tracker. So this is what our feedback database looks like. Since this is my page, I manage the whole meal automation system. I'm able to go through the system as well. That means I'm able to see all feedbacks categorized by hub and by field office level as well. Okay, so basically this is what it looks like. When we need to record the data, these are categorized by hub and by field office. When we need to record the data, as you can see, there is a button that says new. The feedback collector or data entry person will click that and it will direct it to the new page. On the new page, it have different fields. They will enter their hubs, their field office, the award name they received this feedback on, what is its thematic area, the location where the incident happens, the name of the data entry responsible person, the collection methods we receive this feedback from. They enter different these different fields so that we will track the feedback in a detailed way, and it will help us to do analysis as well. After recording this data, as you can see here, we request phone number from feedback providers. If they want to be looped if they want to be looped, we will ask them the phone number. It depends on their willingness. And the feedback entry person will write a brief description, and we will put expected closing date. It does not mean that the feedback should and need to be done on that day, but it has to be, we expect that to be finished on that date. So after recording the data, as you can see here, when the data entry person records the data, the system automatically sends an email, automation email to the responsible person, and by copying the data entry person. So that means I've selected Lydia as a responsible person to follow up this feedback. That means it will send her the email to her, and by copying me, and it will send another email to accountable person by copying the responsible person, so that the accountable person should follow up and could follow up if the responsible person is tracking the feedback. And after the responsible person will follow this link, and it will guide it to the recorded feedback. After the case is closed, the responsible person will come to the system and update the status by selecting the status, whether it's in progress stage, in overdue stage, or closed stage. After the track the status, they need to write a status description to know that what is how did we close the feedback, and what responses were given to the beneficiaries, and they will enter the actual closing date, so that it will help us to do analysis, how many days this feedback has taken to be closed. So this is what the meal automation systems looks like. I was not able to share with you the analysis, the report page, because it has been down and it has not been working, but we used to have this analysis page that was supported by Power BI, and it will help us to understand which field offices has been receiving feedbacks more frequently and recording to the system, and so on. But this system allows us to extract the data, and if you want to do further analysis by doing other softwares, spaces, or so on. So the toll-free hotline, and at the time of the implementing, at the time of initiating of the toll-free hotline, the COVID-19 response project, that's it's called FSP project, that works on distributing cash to different beneficiaries, that has started. And the system, the project staff provided a detailed information about our project, our system, so that they use the system very well. The next slide we will see about is the lesson we learned from that project. That means here I'll put only a few of the feedbacks and findings we tracked through the system, and these feedbacks are only for the COVID cash award, not for other projects. So basically, we received different feedbacks through the hotline. That means we recorded to the system, and the responsible person easily tracked this. So we confirmed that most beneficiaries has received enough information about the project, and who is providing this beneficiaries the cash and the assistance and the objective of the project. And few observed information. There were few observed information gaps. On the first COVID cash award, we noticed that beneficiaries told the cash was going to be given in 6 rounds, but the project staffs shared information about that the project stayed for 6 months, but this was interpreted as the money is going to be given in 6 rounds. On the follow-on COVID-19 cash award, we provided this finding we received from the toll-free hotline to the project staff, and on the next time when they shared information, the beneficiaries actually know how much money they receive, and how many times the project, how many months the project is going to stay on, and it has helped us to minimize the gap we saw in the information sharing area. And the next thing we saw was that during the mobile phone cash pilot, we noticed that some participants have difficulty using their mobile phones for cash out. Many of the beneficiaries prefer to use the banks rather than mobile cash transfer usage. So on the next, on the follow-on COVID-19 cash award, we make sure that the project staff make sure that the beneficiaries to receive a mobile phone so that they can easily track their cash transfer by using phones. And we received another findings like targeting criteria did not consider the size of the family and the current economical status of the country, and different findings. And the major one was the cash delay. Beneficiaries received, they had a cash delay, they received the cash late than the time they were told they will receive it. So basically, this findings was shared to the program staff, and while they were developing the second follow-on, while they were developing the next proposal, they learned from these lessons, and they prepared a better version as well. So basically, as I can say that the Totally for line has helped us to make sure that this feedback has been addressed and learnings has been captured as well. Thank you.
Super, thank you so much, Kalkadan. I think we're running just a couple minutes behind, so we're getting some great questions I see in the chat. We'll come back to these at the end. But for now, I'd like to hand it over to our final presenters, Radwell Sabanda and Yunus Awar from CRS's Resilience Food Security activity called New York. Radwell and Yunus are both on the meal team, with Radwell leading the meal team and Yunus leading and running New York's accountability function. So thank you both for sharing with us today.
All right, thank you, Laura, for the introduction. As already mentioned, my name is Radwell Sabanda. I'm the meal specialist for New York. I'll be co-presenting with Yunus. Just to start off, Chris will be taking us through the slides. Chris, may we have the next slide? All right, yeah, so basically we're going to give you a brief about New York so that you have an appreciation of the scale of where we're implementing. So New York is a local word, which means it is ours. It's a 6-year project running from October 2017 to September 2023. This is funded by DHA, and our goal is to build resilience, enhance livelihoods, improve food security, and improve food and nutrition security for vulnerable rural families of Karamoja. I can't see the screen, Chris. Is the presentation still there?
Yeah, Chris, I'm not sure. Did you stop screen sharing? Oh, there we go. Great, I think we're back now.
All right, thank you very much for that. Yeah, and yeah, this is just about New York so that you have an appreciation of the scale of New York. So we have 4 main purposes or 4 main sectors which are written there. There's governance, there's resilience, then there's the livelihoods, as well as the nutrition, wash and health system strengthening. We're covering 524 villages in a place or in a region called Karamoja. Our target is 196,053 targeted participants, and so far we have reached more than 111,000. We are 7 partners, so CRS is the prime with 6 other implementing partners. On to the next one. Yeah, so just as a background to our feedback and response mechanism, so for CRS, you realize that accountability is part of our meal policies and procedures. So these are global meal policies and procedures, of which we have 10 of them. It's a must. It's not something that we do out of just like you feel like doing it, but it is a must, and it is auditable. it is so these policies guide both emergency and development projects. And as you can see from our policies, it says that within 180 days of a development project, you must establish a feedback and response mechanism. And then for the emergency projects, you should do this within 30 days. It also talks about timely response to feedback from the communities. So for development projects, it should be done within 90 days. And then for emergency projects, this should be done within 1 week. So these, as I mentioned, are auditable, and these are standards that we have to follow. It also has recommended practices, of which one of the recommended practices is to conduct a participatory assessment so as to increase the relevance of the FR system and make sure that it meets the needs of the communities. Also, a good practice is to communicate key project information, that is including progress or changes in project activities or strategies to the communities so that they know what is happening. And by doing this, you actually reduce some complaints related to that. So New York conducted this assessment in 2018, which I'm sure you'll notice it was a bit late according to our standards, but then we were new in the area and we spent most of the time setting up. So in our next slide, we'll just briefly show you some of the findings of the assessment. Again, we are in a very social community. That is why you'll see that most of the communities would prefer community meetings. So these are the number of villages, the numbers that you're seeing there. These are villages that actually mentioned what they want to do. So they prefer to give their complaints through community meetings. And then we also have the second largest feedback mechanism or complaint mechanism as the toll-free hotline. And this is mainly because there had been a hotline that was implemented in the area already. So it was not a new thing and they were used to that. Suggestion boxes and others were more or less, they're not that pronounced because, as I mentioned, it's a very social community where they actually prefer to talk as a community if there are issues or matters affecting them. But however, you will see later on the channels that we have set up. So currently, the channels of receiving feedback from New York. So the first graph shows channels of them giving complaints or them giving feedback to New York, and then the next ones are how they want to receive feedback from New York. So mainly again, they want to receive any responses to their complaints or to their issues through community meetings because of that openness. They also want to receive their feedback through mobile phones, and this is attached to the issue of the toll-free hotline. Okay, on to the next one. So we currently have, I would say we have 5 channels of receiving feedback. And what I wanted to point out again was that although the community did not really favor the use of suggestion boxes and letters, we still went ahead and provided that because, as the team knows, there's confidential feedback that might be coming from the communities or confidential complaints that might be coming from the communities. So we still went ahead and provided these to the team. So we also have, we continued with the toll-free hotline, which is implemented by one of our partners. We continued with the community meetings, and then we also have a radio. So one of our partners also conducts radio talk shows about New York. And so during those talk shows, that is where people can call in and ask about the project, either related to the talk show, or sometimes people just ask something about the project that they don't understand. So we also provide feedback through, we also receive feedback from the communities through the radio talk shows where they call in, but then we also use that channel to communicate with with the communities. So this is about the channels. And then there is an innovation that we did according to our learning from the implementation on the ground, which is where my colleague Eunice is going to take over. Thank you. Over to Eunice.
Thank you so much, Rodwell, for giving us that overview about New York project as well as the accountability system for New York. So in the remaining time, I will take us through the implementation of feedback and response mechanism at CRS and New York as a project. So from the design, the accountability system was being implemented directly by CRS with a dedicated mill person who is directly involved in managing all the feedback for CRS that is coming from the field. So with this, we had quite a number of challenges regarding, since we had in our background information, in the project is being implemented by 6 partners. And so having them not in the process, involved in the process of handling this feedback was really quite brought for us some challenges in terms of prolonged time response, since all this feedback would first come to CRS, then the mill person in charge of the accountability system redirect this complaint back to the front line, to the agency responsible for the intervention. So there was quite a lot of time that was involved in processing this information. Then the other challenge with the system also was on lack of ownership of the process, especially by the high peace, because at that time they were really not involved in handling and managing of this feedback. Then there was also that lack of trust in the system, especially by the CRS, since they could not tell actually what is being recorded in the system, how that information is processed, how are they benefiting from this system. So with all these challenges, we had an in-depth discussion, and we thought of how best can we really improve on the implementation and the effectiveness of the system, hence the formation of what we call the District Accountability Task Force. So which is operating now in all the 4 New York districts. And so in each of these districts, we have actually a dedicated mill person directly in charge of coordinating all the feedback and response mechanism activities within those respective districts. So looking at the District Accountability Task Force, this one actually includes all members of the consortium. The different consortium, the 6 IPs are all represented in the task force. So, and the task force actually meets on a weekly basis to review this feedback that are entered into the system. Next slide, please. All right, so I want to talk briefly about the roles that the district task force does within their respective districts. So first, I would like to bring to your attention that at CRS, different feedback are handled at different levels. We have the sensitive feedback that is assigned to actually more senior staff, and it is not the field responsibility to respond and investigate such feedback. And then we have what we call non-sensitive feedback. This is now where the relevant program staff take participation in, and this is where our district task force plays a great role. So looking at the roles, they are responsible actually for reviewing the feedback that are entered into the database. And to mention, we have a ComCare application that is similar to what actually Save the Children has presented in terms of logging in the feedback, assigning these cases to the responsible officer, as well as updating the status of the investigation and case closure. So that is the form which I will still not talk about it because Save the Children already mentioned it. So this task force help us in reviewing all the cases that come under their district. They also assign these cases, especially those that requires additional follow-up, or or investigation within their districts. So, and for sensitive cases, like I've said, it is not being done by the program staff. Rather, they go straight to the CRS country representative. Then they also still help us in referring those non-sensitive feedback, especially those that are out of scope. These are like feedback which is not in line with New York areas of intervention or implementation. Next, please. Yes, so looking at how feedback is handled at CRIS, one, first do what we call community sensitization, as well as orientation of the different IPs members on the feedback and response mechanism. So during community sensitization, we normally give them we share with them those channels for providing feedback, and then we use this normally takes place during community meeting, as well as we also use the ICE materials that have been translated in the local languages for ease of understanding by the community members. So all the feedback that come from the community come through those channels which we saw earlier on. The toll-free hotline, the suggestion boxes, as well as community meetings. So how do we capture this feedback? So we have two ways of capturing this feedback. The first is that this feedback are captured on either hard copy form, or it is entered directly on ComCare application. The form has already been designed on ComCare application. So, and for those hard copy form, later at the end of the day, they are still entered into ComCare, which goes straight into the database. So from the database, actually at the review stage, this feedback again are looked at different level. So for the sensitive feedback, it is referred straight away to the country representative for investigation and inquiry. Then we have on the non-sensitive feedback, it is referred to the program staff who are directly implementing those interventions within their respective districts. Then, of course, for those feedback that does not require follow-up or any action. For example, feedback on the appreciation of the services being provided by New York. Of course, that one, the case will immediately be closed. And then for those that requires referrals and follow-ups, of course, this is now where the District Accountability Task Force, with the support from the accountability focal point person, reassign this case to the responsible officer to manage and follow up on this issue. And so once the feedback has been, the response has been shared and accepted by the community or the participants, of course, the case is closed. Now, looking at stage 6, this is now what New York does with this feedback that is in the system. There's quite a lot of learning that we draw from this feedback that come from community that we normally share in our weekly and quarterly meetings together with our IPs. So we draw quite a number of lessons from this. Next, please. Yes, so what you see is actually how the information is being displayed on our Power BI. Looking at the date from which the case is open up to, it is actually up to the current date. You can see what from when the cases have been opened. So from last year, June, actually, we have registered a total of 1,112 cases. Out of this, a total of 800 cases have been closed, and then we still have those that are pending, about 300. So in the dashboard, you are able also to view the number of cases that has come under each district. However, we also still don't leave out cases that come from non-New York areas of operation. So we have also been getting some feedback regarding New York interventions from other districts where New York is not operating. Still, we don't ignore them. We also capture them in the system. Then looking at feedback by channel, Most of our feedback comes through the toll-free hotline. This is because it is a channel that had been in place even before New York started its implementation in these areas, and community have a lot of faith in this hotline. That's why you see most of the feedback comes through this channel. Then looking at feedback categories, of course, as CRIS, we have about 9 broad categories of feedback. And so for New York, most of the feedback from the communities has been on requests for activity information, with of course a positive feedback also on appreciation of some of the services that New York is doing. So, and of course we do receive also out of scope feedback. So with the dashboard, you can still further filter out by the different sectors that New York is working on. So if you want something on gender and governance, you are able to see, for example, here under foundation, that is gender and governance, from the start from the design of the system, we have under foundation, we have received a total of 17 feedback, with 11 of it being closed immediately. Immediately here means these are like feedback that have been addressed on spot there and then. So, and with just one that is still pending review. So you can maneuver around the system, though this is just a screenshot. But of course, when you go through using the link, you are able to further filter this by month, by quarter, and also by weekly. You are still able to do that, and then you know, like in this week or in this quarter, how many cases did we receive from the various districts. So this is how the dashboard has been helping us in analyzing our feedback information that is collected, of course, through ComCare. Our ComCare is linked to the dashboard. So all the information that is collected using ComCare is then synchronized and it feeds into the Power BI dashboard. Next, please. Yes, there are also a few lessons and recommendations that New York has actually learned from the time of the implementation of this feedback. And one of it is a participatory assessment, which he said it is a must if we really want to get what the community prefer. So this has to be done. So this feedback actually help the feedback channels that community prefers, enhances with this kind of assessment, it enhances communities' participation, especially in the implementation of the feedback and response mechanism. Then also the introduction of a decentralized system, we looked at it also as being crucial, but of course with oversight from the lead agency for purposes of quality control. And this also can be done for even emergency program. Then the other one, of course, which is great, is the ICT for these solutions that has greatly helped us in tracking this feedback. So it provides us with real-time information, including the information on feedback that has been resolved and closed, and those that are still open and pending investigation. So even equally provision of information helps so much to reduce those information-related complaints that come from the community. So these are just a few things that we learned, and we still recommend for similar projects, both humanitarian as well as emergency program. Thank you very much.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Eunice and Rodwell. It was great to hear about the district's accountability task force system in particular. And it looks like we have about a little bit under 15 minutes here for the remainder of today's meeting. So I wanted to open the floor to any questions. If you have questions on the presentation you just heard from Rodwell or Eunice, we'll welcome those, but also any questions from our previous presenters. So please go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I wanted to thank everyone for those wonderful presentations. I have a kind of general question for the presenters. I was wondering if so in so many ways, accountability to affected populations is often synonymous with complaint and feedback mechanisms, as we've seen here. It's already a struggle to ensure that they're fully accessible, especially to the marginalized in the context that we work in, because they're often very challenging. But perhaps they can elaborate or discuss other ways so that we ensure we're accountable, maybe apart from CRMs.
Sure, thanks for that question, Joanna. Do any of the presenters want to try to take a first stab at answering that question?
Okay, maybe I can take it, Laura. Thank you. You noticed from the presentation, I think it was Kalkidan's presentation. It's also how the other way is information provision, because we're saying that we cannot be held accountable for what the community doesn't know. So in other words, we are in what we're doing in Zimbabwe is we're producing fact sheets about a project to say, in this particular project, we're going to do these activities targeting these beneficiaries so that people are aware who we are targeting and the number of be they boreholes that are going to rehabilitate. They know exactly the number of boreholes, so that at the end of the project, we can all sit down and say, we promised that we're going to deliver this, and we delivered this much. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Josephat. Any other presenters want to speak to that question?
Well, yeah, just to echo what Josephat has said, yeah, the main issue is on information provision. So we realize that most of our feedback sometimes is a result of the communities either not understanding what we are doing or not knowing what we are doing. So that's why they bring some of these complaints. So if you try by all means to make sure that the communities know what is happening, what you are doing, if you are changing any aspect of the programming, let them know. Let the communities also know about your targeting, because those are some of the popular complaints where people feel like they've been left out as participants. So let them know who your target participants are, what is your selection criteria. Once they have that, of course you can't totally shut down complaints. But once you provide most of the information, you realize that that communities will, they become more direct, and they'll be giving complaints or feedback mainly directed to implementation. Otherwise, information provision is key. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks so much. I see another comment in the chat here. We also have the silent majority that may be impacted but may not have the means or the access to provide necessary information. This is where physical presence and observation is very important. I think that's a good add-on as well. Let's see, another question we have here in the chat is from Hillary. Hillary is asking, do folks track the feedback that is completely out of what the activity wants to do? Do these count towards closing feedback loops? Or how do you count those M&E numbers wise? I know we've talked a little bit about feedback that is out of scope. Does anyone want to expand on their answers or try to answer this question otherwise?
Okay, can I go on?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Kalkana.
Okay. This is a good question. I mean, since I am receiving this feedback through the hotline, I directly receive feedbacks from the beneficiaries. That means, yes, we get feedbacks that is out of the scope of the project. we provide them information that how we work on, what this organization work on, and what this project is about. But if the cases are like we category 5 and 6 cases, especially if it's like category 6 cases, we still directed to our, for example, if it's like child protection cases, we direct them to our child protection staff on that field office area, so that this staff could follow up this this received feedback, since these feedbacks or complaints are happening or by the on children's, we need to track them as an organization, since our organization work towards children, so we track them as well. Beside that, if we receive out of scope feedbacks about other related activities, we tend to give them, we tend to make them understand what our organization is about and its aim and its mission. We try to close this as that. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Kalganan. Also, your reply reminded me of Karina's question, which we didn't get to at the end of your presentation, but Karina had a question. She's wondering if, Kalganan, you can tell us a little bit more about the child-led groups, more precisely, how are they implemented and how do you collect feedback from these groups?
Okay, when we say child-led groups, it does not mean that necessarily the project will organize these groups. It might in some cases, but mostly we use for example, we use child prime ministers, which are already established and are there, and we use different groups at schools which have already been organized. It might be like space science clubs or different clubs. The project staff, with the help of the school staff, will discuss with the children who especially lead the groups, and to make them help them understand what the project is about, how it helps them, and if they receive feedbacks from the children, if they hear anything or receive feedbacks, they can collect it and provide them to the focal person at the staff, or if the meal or accountable person while they are monitoring the activities which is being implemented at that education sector or area. So it does not mean that necessarily the project will organize this child-led groups, but it will try to use the already implemented groups, parliaments, and as such. I hope I answered the questions briefly.
I think you did. Thanks so much for that. Let's see, if we don't have any other questions coming in on the chat, I do have a couple general questions. Oh, let's see, we have one here. What is the percentage age of feedback received compared to the beneficiaries that you serve? Do you receive feedback regularly, consistently? Are these feedbacks representational, etc.? Do any of our presenters want to try to answer that question? Kalganan, I think you're on mute still.
Oh. Okay, sorry.
Easy to do.
Okay, so what is the age of the received feedbacks compared to the beneficiaries that you serve? Yeah, I mean, most of the feedbacks we receive are the age of the feedback providers are from 19 to 50, mostly around middle-aged beneficiaries we receive from them. We receive more. The second on the scale is we receive feedback from elders. Not they don't call, but their children or their neighbors tend to call through the hotline. Through the hotline, we don't receive feedbacks mostly from children's. But the age group we receive more is from 19 to 50, mostly around middle-aged people. And the second question is, do you receive feedbacks regularly and consistently? So especially when the COVID-19 Cash Award project was active, we used to take feedbacks frequently. I mean, non-stop. the phone was ringing non-stop. This helped us to learn that this project has shared the information directly and clearly with beneficiaries so that they have the ability to access the system, and it has helped us. So we regularly receive feedbacks through the hotline from Monday to Friday, just around 12 o'clock. So we tend to take feedbacks on the working hours. We are planning to have an operators. I am working on the side, so we have a plan to have operator who speak a different language, since we have diverse community. Beneficiaries tend to speak in different language, so we have a plan to accommodate this and to have operators that work 12 hours a day. So that's how we handle it. Thank you.
All right, yeah, I wanted to add on to that. So looking at the feedback that we have, I think from the presentation that Eunice did from her part, we had about 1,000 complaints, and so far we have reached 111,000 participants. So that counts to about 1%. So I would say currently we are receiving about 1% complaints from our total participants if we are to take those figures as they are. But then we also have challenges in that sometimes we have feedback that is not logged on. So counting the actual feedback is also a problem because it's only those or it's only that feedback that is entered onto the system that will actually come here. You realize that sometimes when you are in the field, you might meet a community member who will ask you or will tell you that they have a problem, they did not access something, they did not access a service that they thought they were supposed to access, and you answer them, and so by answering them, and when they have if they've accepted that answer and they're satisfied, that also becomes, that you have already closed the loop. So still, even if we're to double that figure, that will still go to about 2%. So I'll say we don't have a lot of complaints from our participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodwell. And thanks everyone for the great conversation today. Unfortunately, we're coming up against time here, so it is time to wrap up today's session. Before we close out, I just wanted to note that we'll be sending a follow-up email in the coming days with materials from today's event, including a recording of today's meeting and some of the resources and templates that were highlighted by our